Will Chiori revive Geo? I think it's a possibility. As we all know, Geo teams are not doing so well right now. They don't shine well with reactions in the game that favor reactions. Well, we just recently have Navia, but she didn't save Geo. She saved herself from it, leaving Geo teams untouched. But thanks to the arrival of Chiori, we finally know that at least the developers haven't given up on the current state of mono Geo teams. They have the audacity to release another 5-star Geo character again, just one patch apart. This time, I believe Chiori can at least make Itto's team better. Her kit is designed to have synergy with Geo members like Gorou and Itto, without being too restricted and bound to them. In this video, we will analyze Chiori's kit that has just been released in the beta test, her constellations, possible artifacts, weapons, and possible teams. So, just relax and let's start the analysis together. Chiori is a Geo sub DPS. Her weapon is a one-handed sword and benefits from dual scaling from both attack and defense. Yes, Gorou is barking happily hearing this news. Anyway, Chiori's crucial role as a sub DPS lies in her elemental skill. There are two modes that can be executed with her skill, press and hold. If you press her elemental skill, Chiori will launch forward, with the animation similar to Shenhe's skill, but dealing Geo damage instead. If you hold her skill, it will help you direct the direction in which Chiori will advance, somewhat like Keqing's skill. But it doesn't stop there. After the skill is performed, Chiori will summon a puppet. This is where many players call her as the cooler Albedo, or even the upgraded version of Albedo. The puppet will periodically deal Geo damage every 3.6 seconds and has a certain area of effect. Her puppet's duration is 17 seconds and her skill cooldown is only 16 seconds, which implies that her puppet will always be on the field and can deal damage up to 4 to 5 times. This may seem underwhelming, but fortunately her skill capabilities go beyond that. If there is at least one Geo construct on the battlefield, another puppet will appear. Only a maximum of 2 puppets can be available on the battlefield, and now her puppets can deal damage 8 to 10 times per rotation. Because of this, she is designed for a mono Geo team and synergizes well as a sub DPS for characters like Itto, Ningguang, Albedo, Zhongli, and others. It's important to note that Itto's Ushi is considered a Geo construct as well. Her ultimate offers nothing special except for a huge AoE damage. In the skill description, Chiori will perform a single slash and deal AoE Geo damage. Perhaps her animation will be similar to Raiden Shogun's and Eula's elemental burst. Her burst also has a relatively low energy cost, which is only 60, and a cooldown of 15 seconds. Now, let's talk about her talents, shall we? Her A1 enhances her elemental skill in 2 situations or 2 follow-up actions. After you unleash Chiori's skill, you can either press it again or use normal attacks to enhance it. Unlike Navia or C1 Yelan, Chiori doesn't have an additional charge of E skill. Instead, her situation is more similar to Visual, where you can reposition Oz by pressing her E again. However, for Chiori, she will automatically switch to next character in the line after summoning the puppet. Once the character is on the field automatically, they will gain a specific buff, and with each normal, charge, or plunge attack they perform, Chiori's puppet will execute 1 coordinated attack every 2 seconds. The duration of this buff lasts for 8 seconds or will expire if the puppet has performed coordinated attacks 2 times. So, compared to the initial 4 to 5 attacks with a single press of E, her puppet can now perform up to 7 attacks. This mechanic may seem like a more complicated version of Albedo's, and I assume the damage output will be quite formidable. The puppet's coordinated attacks also work with charge attacks, making it easy to synergize with Arataki Itto, or other characters like Ganyu, Lini, or even Neuvillette if you choose to play her outside of Geo teams. Don't forget, there's still one more condition from Chiori's skill. If you press the normal attack after using her skill, Chiori will gain Geo Infusion for 5 seconds. In my opinion, even though she can gain Geo Infusion, it's still somewhat difficult to make her a main DPS because the infusion only lasts for 5 seconds. While the skill cooldown is 16 seconds. For Navia, her E has an additional charge skill, and the cooldown is almost half of Chiori's. That's why Navia acts as a main DPS, because of the consistency of her infusion. But what if you only press her E skill without triggering the 2 aforementioned fallout effects? Well, doing nothing after her skill activation can be considered as triggering the second effect, which is Geo Infusion 1. So if you want to use her as a sub DPS, make sure to position your DPS next to Chiori, and press her E2 times until she is switched out. This is probably the main function of her automatic switching character gimmicks, indicating that your puppet can now perform coordinated attacks. For her A2, if there is a Geo construct near Chiori, her Geo damage bonus will increase by 20%. Yep, another reason to put her in a mono Geo team, or at least with someone who can summon a Geo construct. Her utility passive is very unique. Every character that wears a skin, or at least a non-default glider skin, will get their movement speed increased by 10%. This may not be really useful, but I appreciate this idea since it has connections to Chiori being a designer. Well, it's better than the expedition things. We already have them for Inazuma region anyway. Overall, even though her skill may resemble Albedo's, there are some other advantages such as the short duration of Geo infusion. In addition, her puppet is not a Geo construct like Albedo's, and therefore cannot be easily destroyed by enemies. Chiori's burst scaling is also consistent, unlike Albedo, which somehow might contribute to higher damage output for the team. However, Albedo's flower will deal damage to enemies every 2 seconds and has a duration of 30 seconds. His skill can be easily repositioned since it only has 4 seconds of cooldown. This makes him easier to use compared to Chiori, whose puppet attacks only occur once every 3.6 seconds, and with a limited quota, maximum of 2 follow-up attacks. Yeah, I expect a lot of damage from Chiori's puppet, but we haven't covered her constellations yet, right? Let's get into it. C1 of Chiori increases the range of her puppet's attack by 50%. It can be said that by default, her skill range is not that great, which is why this constellation can fix it and make it better even more. Not only that, if there is one Geo character in the same party as Chiori, then an additional puppet will be summoned. Remember, only one additional puppet in this way can exist at the same time as one summoned through a Geo construct. This is very interesting. She can now synergize with all Geo characters. Technically, it's still possible even at her C0, but her talents and skills may not perform optimally when paired with Geo characters who don't have a Geo construct, such as Noelle, Navia, and Yunjin. Thanks to her C1, this is not a problem anymore. Do you want 3 puppets? Then just get her C2. Several seconds after activating her A1, and when your teammate is attacking using normal, charge, or plunge attacks, Chiori will summon another puppet that deals slightly higher damage than the 2 previously summoned puppets. However, this puppet will disappear after making one attack or after existing for 3 seconds. If it only has one single attack, then it must deal really high damage, right? For her Constellation 3 and 5, they increase the level of her skill and elemental burst respectively. C4 also makes her summon the doll that she has in Constellation 2, but now it will appear 10 seconds after activating her elemental burst. Chiori's C6 a little bit similar to Navia's C0 combined with Furina's C6, but here after triggering her A1 talents, Chiori's elemental skill cooldown will be reduced by 14.5 seconds, leaving a 3-second cooldown remaining. If you are asking why this happens, it's because now you will fully utilize her normal attacks. Remember her A1, right? After using her skill and using a normal attack, Chiori will gain Geo Infusion for 5 seconds. Thanks to her C6, her normal attacks now deal equal to 50% and 180% attack and defense respectively. And this effect will run out after hitting an enemy 5 times or after the duration ends. She can now act similar to Navia's E, since her skill cooldown is greatly reduced. Unlike Albedo, she has a 5-star signature weapon, and I think it's the best 5-star sword for her. When on the field, damage dealt by normal and charge attacks is increased by 16%. It also increases your elemental skill damage when not on the field by 24%. Then, if one of your team members deals Geo damage, this skill damage increases further by 100%, so it's a 48% damage increase now. Not only that, but the defense of the sword wielder will also be increased by 20%. It also wants at least one member from a Geo team to work. If you are using this weapon on Albedo, it seems really fine, although he cannot maximize the passive normal attack, but to me that's not a problem. Since Chiori also uses a Geo sword that scales from defense, the 4-star weapon that can work well with her is the Cynoburst Spindle. Sorry Albedo, you have to share your belongings with another person this time. Seeing the passive from this sword, it really suits Chiori's playstyle as an off-field DPS, and it also boosts the wearer's defense too. But if you don't plan to pull her signature weapon and somehow miss the Genshin event and don't have Cinnabar, you can use Harbinger of Dawn, just like the era before Cinnabar Spindle exists for Albedo. Using Sacrificial Sword might also work since her elemental skill cooldown is not that short, but this still needs further testing. Technically, since she is a dual scaler, not a split scaler, you can use a weapon that doesn't have defense as the main stat, but has a good critical stat like Missplitter, for example, if the weapon options are very limited in your account. This may work because she also benefits from attack status, but her multiplier is more towards defense, so I think it's still best to build her as a full defense unit scaling. Now let's determine what are the best possible artifacts for her. Sub DPS, spending a lot of time off field, then Golden Troop might be her best artifact. Her elemental skill damage will be busted if you pair her with this artifact. While you farm in this domain, you can still recycle your old artifacts in the scam box to obtain House of Opulent Dreams, in case you want to switch and see which has better stats. Using Husk can also boost her relatively low energy cost burst damage. Her build is basically the same as Albedo's, but the difference is that you can level up her normal attacks too, since she benefits from it. She can also work with a 2-piece slate like 2 Husk combined with 2 Petra, or 2 Golden Troop with any 2-piece defense or Geo damage set. Other than that, she can still work with a 4-piece Tenacity if you want her to play with Ningguang or Navia and doesn't really care about Chiori's damage, or even outside of Geo team comp. If we think about her best possible teams, I might say there are 2 types of teams that could work. They are Mono Geo and non-Mono Geo. Mono Geo can consist of course, Arataki Itto as the main damage dealer, Gorou as a buffer to boost defense, Geo damage bonus, anti-interruption, and critical damage if you have him at C6. Since Geo is a rock solid element and is unbent and unbroken, so that's why they don't release a pure healer, we might use Zhongli in this team for survivability. So yeah, you can replace Albedo in this situation. Or you can even combine both sub DPS and kick out the main DPS so that you don't have to rely on Itto's burst. You can also use Chiori in Noelle team comp. Yunjin is here to boost Noelle's normal attack and lets Zhongli Sting to summon Chiori's second puppet. There's also Ningguang National that you can use for mono-Geo teams. Ningguang's Jade Screen is a Geo construct, so she still synergizes well with Chiori. This team composition also lets Chiori to be able to use a 4-piece Tenacity set to give the DPS attack boost, though Chiori will ignore the HP bonus in this set. Or you might want to rebel a little bit by using Navia as your DPS in this team. This certainly will abandon one of Chiori's passives, but somehow it might still work, considering Navia's personal damage is quite high enough. But if you have Chiori's first constellation, this tip will 100% work. Surely you can also switch Navia with Noelle. In conclusion, to help you better understand her kit, I would say it is safe to assume that she is an upgraded version of Albedo, and her kit and performance might make a Mono Geo team shine a little bit more and not feel forgotten. So, will she make Geo element performance great again? Certainly, but it's not something that will break the meta. Or perhaps in the future beta versions, Hoyo will give Chiori buffs. This is just an early analysis of her kit. So what do you think about Chiori's kit? Feel free to write your comments below. If you enjoy this content, make sure to give a like and share this video to your friends. Help this channel grow by subscribing to Cat Bulani. And I'll see you humans in the next video.